Sean Pickett here with Sales Integrity. Thank you for stopping by the Sales Integrity Podcast. Today we continue our discussion on the topic of prospecting on purpose. So without further ado, let's get today's episode rocking and rolling. All right, welcome back to the Sales Integrity Podcast. We are continuing our Prospecting on Purpose series. We've been talking about prospecting by the numbers. And on the previous episode of the Sales Integrity Podcast on Friday last week, we had talked about sharing content on LinkedIn. And we talked a little bit about visuals, briefly touched on infographics as one of the things that you could share. And I kind of quickly went over pointing you in the right direction as to how you could create an infographic for yourself. Today, we're going to dive deeper into that because I got a lot of feedback from people even before we published that podcast episode on how exactly would I go about creating an infographic. So I intended all along to dedicate an episode to that, and we're going to do that today. And why would we do that? Well, first of all, as you know, I like really doing some research and providing some proof and stats behind anything that I'm recommending here on the podcast or to my customers. So we're going to start off, of course, as we have been in the previous podcast by going over just a little bit of research here to kind of position this the right way. And then we'll dive into my 3 quick tips on how to create an infographic for yourself. So first of all, the research, the first bit of research I'm going to share with you was conducted by 3M Corporation and Zabisco. So 3M Corporation and Zabisco. And what they found is that 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual. And visuals are processed 60,000 times faster in the brain than text. And I briefly touched on that last part last week on the previous episode, but let me repeat that. 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual, and visuals are processed 60,000 times faster in the brain than text. And again, the sources for that is 3M Corporation and Zabisco. The next bit of research kind of builds upon that, but talks a little bit more, how this relates to social media and why you'd want to share infographics, what we're going to talk about today, and visuals on social media, because it really entices others to engage with you. So you want to keep that in mind. And here's why. According to research conducted by Simply Measured, they found this: visual content drives engagement. In fact, just 1 month after the introduction of the Facebook timeline for brands, visual content, which they define as photos and videos, saw a 65% increase in engagement. Let me repeat that. Visual content drives engagement. In fact, just 1 month after the introduction of Facebook timeline for brands, visual content, photos and videos, saw a 65% increase in engagement. And again, the source is Simply Measured for that. So these are 2 really eye-opening stats here. You probably knew a little bit about the visual. Most people are visual, but I'm not sure if you knew that 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual, and that more importantly, visuals are processed 60,000 times faster in the brain than text. That's really, really telling and really points to why you'd want to make the content you're going to provide as visual as possible. I've even done this with my previous LinkedIn post on why social selling versus cold calling is like a political debate. I weaved in videos, podcast episodes, and visual graphics or pictures in there, and kind of spread out the article. And of course, it made it a little bit longer because of all that. However, there's a lot more engagement. I saw that than the simple 3 to 4 paragraph text only articles that I was writing before. So I've seen this firsthand even recently that's working. Everything I'm presenting to everyone, I try obviously on my own before I bring it to you. And I've been trying most of these things for years, but of course, social selling, social media changes quite rapidly. So I like to stay on top of it and bring it to you as my audience as well. So you can start applying things as I'm seeing them work. And then, of course, visual content driving engagement. I mean, that's really telling. The Facebook timeline for brands, once it was launched and those brands were sharing lots of photos and videos, those types of posts saw a 65% increase in engagement over just the text only. So just keep that in mind. That's the case for why infographics, why visuals, why you want to put out videos. We'll talk, we talked about that in a previous episode. We'll get more into detail on that in future episodes as well. Videos are very important element to your content creation game and selling game moving forward. And we'll touch more on that. But today we're going to talk about creating an infographic. This may seem like a daunting task. I mean, I'm sure you've been out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you see these really nice looking infographics come along and they look perfect. They look awesome. They're very engaging. You probably clicked on those and read through them, and they tell a visual story. And again, it captures people's attention, and it also drives engagement. People are more likely to share. That's one type of engagement. So they'll take that infographic, share it with others because they will find it valuable because it is visually appealing and easy to consume that content. And then they typically will like it, and that's another form of engagement, and they'll even comment on it. You'll get more comments because of that as well. So, those three things, you really want them to share it because then you're extending your reach and picking up more followers and fans and connections and all that good stuff, which could lead to more business, building sales pipeline and prospecting on purpose that way, right? So this is purpose-driven. You're not just going to put out an infographic to put out an infographic. One thing leads to another, right? You want to demonstrate and ascend up that, credibility ladder that we talked about a few episodes ago, and just go from, the bottom rung up to that go-to specialist, thought leader, go-to specialist rungs of the ladder, right? And you're going to do that by demonstrating your knowledge and expertise through sharing content out there on social media. That's just going to be one way, but it doesn't even have to be just on social media. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that here with my 3 tips. So don't get overwhelmed with creating an infographic. I'm going to try and simplify this process for you and make it as easy as possible. Hopefully you'll agree with me. So let me jump right in. Tip number 1, keep it simple and brief. That's tip number 1. Keep it simple and brief. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I always talk about this. You probably heard this before, but imperfect action is better than perfect inaction every time. Right? If you're trying to, you're in your lab, your creativity lab there, and your hair's on fire, trying to get everything perfect there, you never bring it to market, nobody's going to know about it. Getting something out there that's sloppy, you don't want to do that either, but you're probably going to be more hard on yourself as to what's good and what's not. Most people appreciate well thought out, information that's presented to them in a logical manner. And infographics certainly can do that for you. So I'm going to talk about how to keep it simple and brief, but I just want to start with tip number 1, keep it simple and brief. And what does that mean? First of all, a one-pager will do. It doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out, multi-page report. That's the beautiful part about an infographic. They're typically one page and easy to get through. Now, I've seen the more detailed, daunting infographics where it's one really long image, like a page, but it's like a PNG or a JPEG image. And they're shared out on websites and shared out on social, and you click on them and then you blow it up and it's like this long, thin thing that you got to kind of blow up and expand and stuff like that. So I'm not talking about that type of one pager. I'm talking about a one pager that's, simply fits in one page. It's easy to view and it's very visual. So keep it simple and brief. One pager will do. It more likely that people will read that one pager, and more importantly, it's more likely they'll share the one pager. And the one thing you're going to want to do at the bottom of your infographic is put in your logo and put in a link or your contact info in there, whether it be, your LinkedIn, URL, profile URL, or a Twitter handle, or even your email. If you're creating this as a sales professional and it's not done through your company, this is your point of view around your niche topic, and it's a way to demonstrate, your knowledge, expertise there, but share that with others to help them by simplifying the complex subjects that you're dealing with, within your interactions with prospects and clients and even networking partners. So keep that in mind. This is going to be a tangible value asset that you're going to use within your prospecting on purpose approach and within your prospecting activities, sales pipeline development activities, networking activities, selling activities. So just keep that in mind. So you want to keep it simple. Keep it to a one pager. It's more likely to be read, and most importantly, it's more likely to be shared by those in your network and just those that come upon it, which is the ultimate goal. There's people out there that will stumble upon it that you've never met, but ultimately they may reach out to you because of it. So don't make the mistake of not putting your contact info in small print down at the bottom. You don't want that being overwhelming what the content is, but you still want it there. And people are accustomed to that and used to seeing that. Okay, so that's tip number 1. Keep it simple and brief. Tip number 2. Pick the right creation tool. And I talked a little bit about these tools, and I did that quickly on the previous podcast, but I'm going to dive a little bit deeper here today. So let me go in order of kind of what I feel is this. I'm going to provide a recommendation of 4 different tools, and I'm going to start with simple all the way to, dead on perfect for this type of infographic creation. So the first thing is, if you're overwhelmed with apps and you're overwhelmed with software programs and things like that, you're probably used to PowerPoint. So you literally can create a PowerPoint, keep it to one slide deck. They have the smart art. So it's like graphics you can insert in there. And so you could just use your PowerPoint savvy and skills and create a one pager and get one of those smart art graphics where you're going to insert, and usually the process flows or the charts, those are good ones because then you can kind of tell a story. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, or do this to this to this. You can keep it as simple as 1, 2, 3, things like that. Use those images in there and then tell a little bit of story with the text within the images or around it. And then again, make sure to put your logo, put your contact info in there. You could save it, and then you can save it as a PDF or print it as a PDF. So now you've got it as a one pager there, and then off you go. So that's the easiest way to do it. It's also not the most graphically pleasing. I mean, people can kind of tell that you've used PowerPoint, but it's okay. It's better than just chicken scratch on a napkin, right? Or not doing it at all. It's much better than that. But PowerPoint's a good way to start. So it might be a good way for you to practice and kind of come up with your concepts when you're starting there. But you can certainly create that. And we've done this before at my coach site, our software company. We've created kind of like 8 steps to coaching success, and it kind of tells the story. Kept it simple, and we've gotten some good feedback from that from executives out there that are interested in that coaching enablement delivery software. So keep that in mind. That's one way to do it. PowerPoint. The next one is there's an app called WordSwag. In WordSwag, you can download on your tablet, your smartphone. It's a free app. There is a paid version, but everything I'm recommending is free that you can use because most people already have PowerPoint on their laptop. So I guess it's not free. You pay for it at one point, or your company did, but it's free now for you. And then WordSwag is you can download it. It's free. It's WordSwag. WordSwag. Swag. WordSwag. And that one's really good for creating those images you see that have a nice picture in the background with words that overlay it, like inspirational quotes and concepts to think about. So if you want to keep it simple, this isn't necessarily an infographic, but this is along the lines of visuals, right? And people like visuals. So that's a way to mix up your content and keep yourself present out there in the marketplace, top of mind, by sharing those every once in a while. Because let's face it, you're not going to create an infographic a day or even a week. You're going to create an infographic and share that often. And then maybe in the future you'll create another one, but you're not going to do that every day. You do want to be present and visually present out there on social media daily and weekly. So these images, these WordSwag images, are kind of a nice way to break up the monotony of what you might be posting. You just can't post every single day that same infographic. So that's a way to mix it up, and it works hand in hand with infographics. WordSwag. So that's the second one. The third tool is Canva. Canva. A lot of people are familiar with this. I've got this pulled up here on my iPad. And this provides a lot more options, and it does the same thing that WordSwag does. So WordSwag is fairly simple, a simple version, let's say, of a Canva type tool. But Canva provides these new design, like you could start a new design based on what you want to create. So it has social media, presentations, Facebook covers, Facebook posts, Instagram posts, blog graphics, Twitter posts, posters, gives you images you can choose from. You can buy images from them and put them in there. And then you can start to create these nice graphics. This is a little bit more, hey, start from scratch, but it does have a drag and drop and kind of mash up feature. And, it's a little bit more involved than the simplistic WordSwag where it's overlaying words. You pick the font type. You can resize the font, to larger, smaller, move it around, kind of drag and drop, same thing, but you have a picture in the background. To where Canva does all that and then some, right? It has all sorts of types of images you can create and all that, and it gives you kind of starting templates depending on what type of image you want to create. I still don't think it's great to create an infographic for any of those, WordSwag or Canva. PowerPoint's even better in my opinion for that, but those are going to be way more visually appealing than PowerPoint, both WordSwag and Canva. The one I like the best is the one I'm going to end with here that I'm recommending, and this is all still part of tip number 2, which is pick the right creation tool for your infographic. And the one I like is Venngage, Venngage. So Venngage. This is a true infographic creator. And this is something that I'm sure they have an app. I just pull it up on the desktop, the laptop. But they have where you can create not only infographics, but reports and posters and marketing materials, promotions, and all that. And believe it or not, they do have a free version of this. So you could start off for free. Everything I recommend here, I like to at least start off, recommend tools that have a free version. And then if you like it, you can decide whether to upgrade or not and do more with it. But this one has a free one. I went on there, and the first thing they do is they provide some featured infographic templates. And then there's one called the creative process for beginners. It's called beginner. You could search for the creative process or creative process, and you click it, and then it already has it kind of begin with the end in mind, done for you template. You just got to replace images and what you want to do. But the cool part about this is that it applies the power of three, right? And I've talked about this. I did a whole episode. You can go to salesintegrity.com and search our blog. We post all of our podcast on there. And I did a whole episode on the power of three, and I'll just summarize it real quick for you here. The human brain can retain three new concepts when you first present it. The minute you introduce a fourth concept, it's highly likely it'll forget all four. So keep things simple, especially when you're first starting. This might be an easy way for you as a beginner to create your own infographic. And this does have the power of three. It has three images, three little sections to it. It has a place to put in your link at the bottom and contact info, and you can even put your logo in there. And so that's one that I've created here as well, talking about make your sales pop, which is our mantra. POP stands for preparation, organization, and productivity. And I talk a little bit about that. I have images. Those are the three headers for each of those sections, and then a little bit of text describing it. Very simple. And then you go out there, you share it, and you start getting that out there. And it's a much better looking visual process than a PowerPoint, and much more infographic looking than what WordSwag or Canva provides based on my experience. So Vengage is a great tool for beginners to start with. They have all sorts of infographic templates you can start from. Quickly drag and drop and replace, and off you go. Save it, and you can start sharing it. And that leads me to the final tip that we'll end with. Tip number 3, share on social media. Once you create the infographic, you can share this and share it often, and first start with social media. So LinkedIn, just post it out there. Share an image is what you do on your activity feed wall, and that'll go out to all your network, all the people that are following you and connected to you. Share it on LinkedIn groups as well. So where it's applicable, in groups there, they love getting visual graphical stuff. You're not really selling, you're sharing. Keep that in mind. If you go in the groups and you try and sell and you're very forward and outright with that, you're going to get kicked out. So don't do that. But infographics is a nice way to subtly sell by sharing. Right? And put that out there. People know, people are savvy. They get it that, hey, you're not just doing that just to do it, right? Just to be a nice guy or gal and share this info, but you should have that mantra to seek first to give before you expect anything in return in the future. So, it's the old Zig Ziglar approach. Help enough other people get what they want in life, you in turn will ultimately get what you want. So, it's something that you want to do. Go out there and add value first, okay? And this is a great way to do that, because these concepts and ideas that you create in the infographic should be something people can take and run with on their own, whether they work with you or not. So demonstrate that value through the infographic. So share it on social media. Twitter's a great place to share it too. I've gotten a lot of traction on Twitter. Anything I create and post on LinkedIn, I share on Twitter. I also do on Facebook, and a group that we run, a B2B B2B tech sales pros that are out there, that group. I share it on there, and I get a lot of good feedback from everything I share on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So you should do the same with these infographics. And then also, not just on social media, share it with prospects at the right time in the sales cycle, even early on. If you create that simple that graphic, the creative process one with just the 3 images and 3 concepts, that'd be a nice follow-up tool after you're done with the first meeting. You schedule the next meeting, and then you send that to them. Hey, I just wanted to get this to you. This kind of summarizes the concepts we talked about and our approach to delivering whatever your product, service, solution is. So that would be a good thing to do. Share it with your prospects within the sales cycle. Share it with your clients. Share it with dormant clients. Maybe clients you work with in the past you haven't anymore. It could be a good way to reinvigorate discussions, generate new opportunities, and then use it as a follow-up reinforcement tool for everyone you meet with networking-wise as well. So just keep that, keep that in mind. The more you share your infographic in the marketplace, the more others are going to share it, and it's going to get in the hands of a lot of people, and ultimately in the right people who are going to reach out to you and say, hey, I came across this info. I'd like to learn more about your approach as it relates to your niche here. So that'll do it for today's episode. Hopefully you found some value in this and you're really strongly considering creating an infographic. Hopefully I shed some light and simplified the complexity associated to creating marketing materials, graphics, infographics, things like that. But I think an infographic is a perfect piece of content for a sales professional to create. You can control that, put the control in your own hands. You can quickly create something and organize your thoughts that way. After all, we are very visual as sales professionals. So I thought this would be a great episode to kind of shed some light and dive a little bit deeper into this niche of creating an infographic as a sales professional. So that'll do it for today's episode. Now let's end with a few quick reminders. All right. Reminder number one, if you haven't signed up for our free 7-day video email course titled 7 Steps to Master the Game of Complex Technical Selling, then you should do so right away. Go ahead and visit mastercomplexselling.com. Again, it's mastercomplexselling.com. Reminder number two, if you want to ask a question and have me feature that on the podcast to answer your question, then just send an email to asksean@salesintegrity.com. Again, it's Ask Sean, and I spell it SEAN. So Ask Sean at salesintegrity.com. Number three, if you haven't already done so, please rate the show. If you've been listening a few times and you get a sense of what the show is about and you feel comfortable, I greatly appreciate a 5-star rating and a quick 1 to 2 sentence review. You could do so on iTunes. Just search for the show and then click the ratings and reviews and go ahead and just add it there. And then final reminder, if you haven't already joined one of our 2 B2B Tech Sales Professionals group, you could do so on either Facebook or LinkedIn. Just go ahead and search for B2B Tech Sales Professionals, and it'll pop up, and you can just join right there. So once again, thank you for listening to today's episode. Go out there today and help your customers buy what they want, what they need, and what benefits them. And most importantly, go out there and make it a great day.